You're listening to the Abolitionist Round Table, patriotic Black American conservatism, with your hosts, Del, Phil, and Janice, leading the charge and advancing the 4%. Join in the conversation at 734-822-1600.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us at Art of Michigan, where we try to draw a picture of good government. This is Janice Daniels. I'm sitting in the big chair this morning across the round table from my good friends Del Marsh, Phil Stargell. Good morning, gentlemen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just wanted to wake up myself there.
Del, tell me, how are the roads that you're driving on faring? What do you think about the roads?
Well, you know what? At work, a guy has a picture from the newspaper of a big pothole on 75, and I say, well, man, that's not a pothole right there. Your whole car can fall in that. So yes, we see that our roads do need some. They really do need some care.
Phil, what about the roads you're driving on? How do they look?
Well, they need care, but they need care because it's been a deliberate thing. They want the roads to get as bad as they can get, and they don't want to fix them until they get the funding that they want.
Yeah. You know what? The roads that I travel on are really pretty good because I live in Troy, where the big government lovers painted a picture of doom and gloom in 2011, forcing the people to vote on a tax increase upon themselves. And now the city is flush with the people's money, so they have to spend millions of dollars so that their excess general fund balance isn't too large. They are fixing city roads, they are fixing county roads, and it's just so that the people won't see this huge excess. And also, by the way, I have it on good authority that free piece of land for the Troy Transit Center is now going to cost us over $4 million. That was supposed to be a free piece of land, but because the city of Troy decided to build a transit center on a piece of property that was in dispute of ownership, it is now going to cost the taxpayers of Michigan, not just Troy, the taxpayers of Michigan, $4 million.
Wow.
So I think that we need to take a serious look at government at all levels. I'm of the opinion that we ought to throw away 100 years worth of laws, burn them all at on a pyre, and start over again, because our system is so fundamentally broken that I don't see any hope for our future. However, every once in a while we do have a person who comes into the legislature and is one of the good guys, and we have one of the good guys on the phone with us today. Good morning, Senator Colbeck.
Hey, good morning, Janice, Del, and Phil.
Good morning, my friend.
So how are you doing, and are you prepared to tell us what this legislature is going to do to coerce yet another tax increase out of us?
Well, first, we might want to dwell on your energy plan there. I mean, if we burn all that legislation over the last 100 years, that could probably fuel a power plant there for at least a few days.
You know, that's really a very good point. So now I know...
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about roads right now, obviously we're at that stage where the voters thankfully rejected Proposal 1 with a nice little margin there, 81% saying no.
Yes.
And then a lot of the messaging around that no vote was around the fact that many people like myself oppose it because we don't need to increase our taxes to fix our roads. Other people said that it was too complex, you're mixing together too many issues.
Yes.
So what happened in the wake was that the Senate went out and passed its road plan that increased taxes. The House passed out a road plan that increased taxes to a much lesser degree, but they focused it on roads. And now we've got this impasse where the Senate plans are sitting over in the House, and the House is considering where to proceed. And it was clear right now that if you take the common ground between what the Senate has passed and what the House has passed, both agreed that we could reprioritize $700 million worth of existing general fund money and just target it towards the roads. We don't have to increase taxes. If you combine that with building roads that actually last longer, you don't need any additional revenue. But the problem is some people are trying to fix other potholes in the budget, like those due to Medicaid expansion, with that same general fund. And that's where the rub has been. That's why people are pushing for the tax increase. It has nothing to do with the roads. We can fix the roads with existing revenue. They want to go off and backfill other issues. And I want to make sure people understand that.
Senator Colbeck, that brings up a very good point, because the existing tax bill that is in front of the House right now, I think, says that it's like tie-barred to Senate Bill 414 and House Bill 4612, 4613, 4614. And if the people would simply take a look at what these bills represent. For example, Senate Bill 414, it amends 1967 Public Act 281, which is 17 chapters long. It refers to budget from 1984 Public Act 431, which is 68 pages long. Now, my general question is, how in the world can you people in the legislature, and I apologize for the for saying you people, but how can our legislators confidently know what in the world kind of burden they are placing upon the people when you're amending legislation that amends legislation that amends legislation back to the beginning of the 20th century?
Well, I'm an old engineer. I used to write a lot of specs, and I used to work on space stations, so our specs weren't exactly simple. And so I'm pretty comfortable navigating those waters. Yeah. And you've got to go through, and sometimes we're not given a lot of time to go off and evaluate those. That makes it an easy no. But the ones when you do get a chance to read them, I mean, in that package that you're citing, my contention is that there's 8 bills that have been passed out of the House and the Senate regarding roads. I classify 4 of them as good bills. There's bills that actually require competitive bids on contracts, and there's bills that require warranties and actually put some teeth into the warranty provisions we have. That's Senate bills or House bills 4610, 4611, and 4613. The Senate bill 414 that you refer to has actually got some good ingredients on it because it's tied to a income tax rollback. So a lot of people are touting that as the good stuff, and then there's also, I think that's where we're actually specifying the restricted. We're taking $700 million in general fund and actually restricting it
Senator
to
Colbeck,
use on the roads.
You know what? You can bring all the summaries to mind that you want, and I appreciate the way that you look at it from an engineering perspective. And I've looked at your website and your solution center, and I like your quality-based road funding plan. And you made a nice PowerPoint presentation detailing exactly what it was that you wanted to see accomplished. But the fact remains that when people vote for 12-page piece of legislation that refers to a 68-page piece of legislation, and it goes on and on and on. Yeah. The overall big picture is that we cannot know all of the laws that we are placing. We cannot follow laws that we don't know exist. And we are burdening the people. We are burdening future generations with this kind of gobbledygook.
You nailed it in regards to when you have very complex laws. I think it was either Jefferson. I think it was Jefferson that said when we have complex laws that nobody can understand, we've kind of violated the intent of our whole system of government. Our Constitution is a pretty simple little document, but when you couple that with 20,000 pages of regulation that you find in Obamacare, how's anybody supposed to comply with it?
That's exactly right.
The purpose of laws. I mean, you're supposed to be a purpose of law saying, here's what we expect you to do. You shouldn't have to go buy 10 lawyers in order to figure out what I'm supposed to do during the day.
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. In fact, I looked at a daily journal of the Senate, one of your daily journals. This was for September 9th of 2015. The meeting convened at 10 a.m. At 10:05, there was a recess called. It was reconvened then at, that was a 5-minute recess maybe, but then there was a potty break, and the entire meeting was adjourned at 11:34. Now, there were 30 pages on a daily journal of what you guys were supposed to be looking at, 30 pages worth of double column bills and resolutions, and somebody wanted to make September the National Drug Awareness Month. This isn't what we're paying you guys to do.
Oh, some of these bills are just ridiculous. I agree. I think we're a bill factory sometimes, and a lot of people are advocating part-time legislature. I really like that concept of a part-time legislature to cut down on that throughput. The one key thing we have to do in the state of Michigan before we can do that, from my perspective, is to make sure that we've got constraints on the executive branch. Because we've got some interesting things happening in the state of Michigan. I don't know if you guys saw this, but one of those bills that was passed recently gave more power to the executive branch, and it's kind of a scary power. Senate Bill 384 was just passed this past week out of the Senate, and what it does is provides limited police powers to agents of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Wow.
Essentially, we have a new police force out of the executive branch to enforce. Right now, it's just enforcing essentially the food stamp program, but the proverbial camel's nose under the tent is there.
Yeah.
And if you listen to folks like David Janda, who's identified this as far back as 2009, 2010, highlighting what the natural extension of this is.